And now we're going to move into a Q&A session with some key members of our Collaboratory team, Tian Zhang, who is a professor and department chair of statistics at Columbia University, as well as the associate director for education at the Data Science Institute. And then also Chris Magari, who's our senior director for entrepreneurship in the University Office of Alumni and Development at Columbia Entrepreneurship, and myself. And actually, Tian, you know, Tian had kindly offered to actually do a little introduction at the beginning, and I'm so sorry, I just launched into my presentation. So before we start with our Q&A, Tian, do you have any remarks that you wanted to share with us as our fearless leader on the Collaboratory?
So I think the original plan is we just like to welcome everyone. You know, we want to, we're very grateful that all of you find time to join this info session. And every time we do such an info session, we're always impressed by how much people care about innovative pedagogies and want to teach students what they need for their future career in a ever data rich society out there. And what a few trends that we have observed during the Collaboratory program is it's something, you know, some seeds we don't plant here is don't think of this as only a program to create benefits for your own discipline, because you want to have a course that teach data science to doctors, to engineers, to social scientists. What we have learned is that by doing so, by creating courses that are interdisciplinary in nature, it also offers an opportunity for data science students to learn how to be mindful about real problems, how to create products that are unbiased and responsive to real social issues. So this is very relevant in current events. The pandemic, data science working with doctors in pandemic, try to make sense of what policy, what treatment are most effective. And for the anti-Blackness movement, people start quoting about what data shows and what they, how data support more social changes and how data science can be used and data ethics can be used to combat the lack of justice in our society. So all the courses you may be thinking about for your own discipline, for your own students, also offer that opportunity. And they are at Data Science Institute, we are also organizing conversation in what action we can take to combat such societal issues. And I think Collaboratory program play a very interesting role here because it bridges multiple disciplines, but also it serves as a medium between faculty and researchers and students. So horizontally, it bridges different disciplines, different school, different departments. Vertically, it allow all the research and high-level discussion of the university to trickle down to really benefit the students who eventually will go out there into the professional world and then multiply all the wonderful things you guys can teach them and to lead to real change. So this is something that I want to put it out here. I think I'm very excited to read your proposals, and I'm happy to answer any question you may have.
Great, thank you, Tian. So we want to open it up to questions now. We're happy to answer those. And if people want to, you can raise your hand using the Zoom function, or if you want to just unmute yourself and say hello, feel free.
So there was a question sent to me privately. When you present, it was asking about the team composition. So we briefly talk about it in the presentation. There is a requirement to have a full-time officer of instruction in the team to ensure that course can be taught in the future. So that's the only requirement. Other than that, even though we encourage interdisciplinary collaboration, we encourage the team to have both data science expertise and discipline subject expertise. It doesn't have to be the team need to have people from different departments. What happened in the past is that some departments already have someone who's interdisciplinary. We have had like in the School of Nursing, somebody who also studied machine learning application in School of Nursing. So that person sort of check out both boxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Hi, my name is Jenna. I'm a psychiatrist. My question is regarding the longevity aspect of the grant. So while I think some of the funding could help me basically create time to develop the course, I'm wondering if other physicians have applied in the past and how they were able to create longevity, seeing as how our primary roles here are, direct patient care.
Mm-hmm. Tiana, Chris, I would say I haven't seen any. I haven't personally seen any projects that were launched by physicians. Well, let's see, is that true? I mean, we had the team, the dentist team. Chris, you know, yeah.
Yeah, there is good representation from CUIMC and PNS. I'd be happy to put you in touch with those folks. One example that comes to mind, in addition to the dentistry school that Isabel referred to, is MRI technology. And so the team that teaches medical school students about MRI technology is now layering in data science on top of it. If you think about the amount of data that's generated from a single MRI, basic scientists aren't real familiar yet with how to use that data and turn it into actionable information. And so that project is layering data science on top of MRI. It's actually magnetic resonance spectroscopy, but I have a hard time pronouncing spectroscopy, so I use imaging instead. But on the website is a complete listing of all the projects funded and all the departments represented with an abstract there, so you can get a pretty good idea. And if that fails, you can send your question to Collaboratory@columbia.edu. I monitor that email address, so does Tien, and we'll be happy to answer your questions for you.
Okay, thank you.
So I think I would add one thing, because this is Columbia's own program. We're doing the internal seed funding for curriculum developments, which means that we have a lot of flexibilities and when we review proposals. So it's not something that as rigid as external funding agency. When they require something, you have to, deliver that kind of setup. So what we're looking for are data science curriculum, interdisciplinary data science curriculum that can be sustainable to the population you're trying to serve. So, and the format need to be justified to be effective and efficient, right? So there was some discussion about for the medical school, a full course may not be productive in a way that is very hard to fit just another elective in the medical students' learning. But people were talking about maybe a library of video modules or continuing ed, or some like boot camps. We have seen flexible formats of that sort. So if you put together a proposal saying, here are the product we want to deliver, and here are the people will make this happen, and here are the institutional support we have for this project, and all of this come coherent together, and we will we will be able to see, assess the importance and impact of the project, if that helps.
That does. Thank you.
Great.
So there are some questions in chat. Chris, are you monitoring the chat?
I am monitoring the chat. One question came up about restriction of the use of funding. While there are no set criteria per se, how you spend the money or your proposed budget is certainly factored into the decision to make the grant or not. So, and I think Isabel covered that in most cases, the funds are used to buy yourselves out of your teaching obligation. Funds are used to hire TAs. This is a TA intensive exercise. This is something we've learned over time. By definition, you're teaching a cohort that's in one particular discipline, a whole brand new set of information and concepts around data science. That takes a lot of extra hand-holding. So TAs are an added expense. Some budgets have been used to purchase equipment. The MRI, or the example I gave earlier, it's a very expensive piece of equipment. The team had to rent it out in order to teach it. So those are some examples of how the funding has been used. Another question was co-teaching. Does everyone on the team need to have a teaching role? And the answer is no. Everyone on the team does not have to have a teaching role.
Yeah, with some of our larger teams, for example, we've seen, you know, some of the people are focused on teaching. Some people are more like consultants on the curriculum development. And in some cases, we've seen, you know, larger teams of like 5 to 7 people where everyone's coming in and contributing, you know, part of the curriculum. Or in some cases, we have teams where a few of the people are developing one course and a few people are developing a second course, and that, you know, multiple courses are kind of coming together to create, let's say, a new master's program or a new kind of a whole new kind of module within a department.
Hi, this is Sandra.
I saw a question about whether Barnard professor. I believe the answer is yes. And I think the collaboratory program at Columbia University is for Columbia University community broadly defined.
Okay.
Yeah,
I had
Barnard's in.
Great. I had a question. This is Sandra Lee. I lead the Division of Ethics. And I'm wondering, you had mentioned the evaluation component and that we should perhaps partner with a center. I can't remember what the center that you mentioned, but I'm also wondering if, you know, given the 5-year horizon of the program, if there are any kind of pearls that have come out of that component in terms of what you've gleaned regarding evaluation of the different formats.
I'm on.
The center that I mentioned is the Center for Teaching and Learning at Columbia, and they actually worked with one of our teams, the What is a Book in the 21st Century group, to develop and they used materials that have been, you know, developed elsewhere as well, but they developed a template for evaluating digital literacy and growth in digital skills. And so that's something that we've seen at least one other team look at, and I think I've recommended it to other teams as well. So it may be used a little bit more widely. So that's one way to go. Chris, did you want to say something?
I think Sandra had a 2-part question. You answered the first part. I was unclear on the second part with respect to evaluations. Sandra, evaluations of what? The proposals? Or?
Yeah, no, I was thinking in terms of the different courses in their various formats, what you've learned from this 5 years in terms of what seems to have been successful and what things haven't been so.
Yeah.
So I shared one of the observations that I shared, that we have found that the course, when we mix a cohort of data science students and subject student, like discipline, student in applied discipline, both both sides of students report to recognize the values in that experience. So that's one of the things that we anticipated, but we still felt overwhelmed by the positive feedback from both sides of the students. And another thing that does seem to resonate across board is peer teaching and peer learning is a very important aspect of such courses, where when you have mixed cohort of students in the classroom, allowing the student to work in pairs with different backgrounds, allow them to work in teams, add tremendous benefits to their experience, especially when you go virtual. So that's two things that we have learned so far, and then courses such as Data Past, Present, Future have their notebooks on GitHub, and they adopt innovative platform to make the experience into introductory experience into programming accessible to students from non-traditional background. So that's also something that seemed to be a successful tactic across board.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Hila. I'm a geneticist in the Department of Medicine. And I have two questions. One, do you expect us to identify who is the student population we're targeting? And then you mentioned the potential of using it as a continuous medical education if we're targeting physicians or medical students, correct?
Yes. So, okay. So your first question was, do we expect you to talk about your target audience? Yes, we want to know who you hope to reach with your course or your whatever curricular offering you have. In terms of continuous, we want to see that this is something that's continues to be offered over time, not necessarily to the same group of the same cohorts, but to different cohorts, if that makes sense. But it's quite.
I was Tian Zhang, you mentioned that for medical students, you understand that we cannot really add on top of their current curriculum, that they're already overwhelmed, and there is an option to develop continuous medical education, like CME courses, or did I not understand you correctly?
I believe that was a discussion that, I don't know whether, Chris, you were at a meeting that Richard and I had with one of the DBMI faculty. Like, I think Richard was interested. Can you confirm that with Richard?
Can you restate the question?
So the question is whether the proposal can propose to develop continue ed
CME course, a continuous medical
for physicians. I believe Richard.
Oh, can we find a format, in other words, or place to put this course that allows for extremely busy students?
No, actually the question was if developing a new course in the existing medical school curriculum is not viable and is not necessarily efficient and productive, whether the proposal can focus on creating modules, curriculum material for continue ed, like, because doctors constantly need to take those courses.
Yeah, that's correct. The dental school had the same problem, and their deliverable was an online course that was an elective. And so the dental students there took it self-paced and in their spare time, not as part of their.
Right. I think that the question is a more formal course in the CME curriculum. There is such a thing, and people actually pay to take those courses. And Richard and I and what is his name? Nick Tadanati had a meeting about this, of creating CME modules, teaching physicians, cardiologists about how deep learning and other machine learning methods being applied in medical research. So I think he is interested, but I will not say this with 100% confidence about whether this I think Chris, you can go and confirm with Richard.
Yeah, let's definitely take it offline. I agree with you. I'm 95% certain that that would be encouraged. And so, Hila, if you want to contact me afterwards, we'll make sure that you got a certain answer to that before you go to the trouble of filling out the application.
Sounds good. So maybe going back to my first, or Mary, you want to ask a question?
No, go ahead, Hila. Can finish yours and then I'll step in.
Because as a geneticist, I think everybody should know genetics, regardless of what the minor they're doing in undergrad and what major they're doing or graduate school they're going to. But I don't really have relationship to in all these places to target these students. So is it okay to target a student that is not in the Department of Medicine as someone who is in the Department of Medicine?
They have to be Columbia matriculated people, students.
Right. So I need to contact the departments from, I don't know.
That's correct. Isabel mentioned earlier that there are going to be administrative challenges. All of us are passionate about our jobs. All of us hate administrative challenges. You'll have to get over that a little bit. By definition, this is interdisciplinary. So departments, in many cases, Tien mentioned that that's not in all cases, will have to cooperate together, and that's been a very difficult thing to do at Columbia. I'm here to help, and I'm here to refer to people who've problem solved similar situations in the past, but we just want to be open, honest, and direct. You will likely encounter administrative, bureaucratic problems.
But so it can be in the proposal. We don't have to have solved these issues ahead of time when we are proposing.
We can't, well, if your proposal is based on 50% of your participants will be coming from the School of the Arts better say, yep, we agree to that.
Another thing you want to mention is that it's okay for you to say everyone should know genetics, and then you want to say what's your target audience. Maybe your target audience are undergraduates. There are discussion of not many undergraduates are benefiting from all the research at COMC, and then one of the barrier is the geographic, like the physical distance between the two campuses. So they're having effort try to have some of COMC colleagues come to Morningside and teach undergraduate courses that are interdisciplinary and expose them to interesting problem at the medical center. So yes, I think part of the proposal could be that you have some initial discussion with colleagues at Morningside that you recognize there's such a need, and you need to show that you actually know a few of such colleagues so that we can have confidence that you can initiate conversation and initiate that. It cannot just be you speculate this is what's going to happen, and we have no idea whether that have a chance of success. You have no idea whether that does not give, like, say, the founders confidence in the success project. But in the past, we also, when we see project lists like this and we like it so much, and we sometimes give a 1 year pilot award. So we have a small mechanism if this. So I think, of course, everyone needs to do their homework when writing the proposal, but by the end of the day, if you want to submit something, do it anyway, and we will, our review tend to give very good feedback on the proposal.
Great, thank you.
Great. Well, we have a few more questions coming through the chat as well as a raised hand. I want to go back to one that was submitted previously from Myrna Giordano. I hope she's still here with us. She says, hi everyone, I'm a pediatric hospitalist and my research has been in opioid-sparing multimodal analgesia. I have collaborated with epidemiology department and Columbia Value Institute. I'm very interested in furthering this collaboration in the time of COVID and looking at how addiction habits were affected in different populations. Sorry, cannot join by camera or speak because I'm multitasking. So I'm not sure actually if that's, how much of that is a question, but Myrna, if you have, are you looking for a collaborator and looking for suggestions, or is there something else specifically? It sounds like an interesting topic. Chris, do you know if Myrna is still with us? Let's see.
She's not. I replied to her chat and offered to speak to her offline after the meeting.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So let's go then to Bohar Singh, who has had his hand up for a while. Bohar?
Hello, everyone. I'm Bohar Singh from International Research Institute for Climate and Society, which we call it IRI. We work in Lamont campus. And
Okay.
I have a PhD in climate dynamics, so I have a knowledge from the climate side. And our field is start using machine learning, especially the supervised machine learning, because we have a big data from last 4 or 5 years. And this domain is quite new. And I want to develop a course to the supervised machine learning practices in climate science. So I have 2 questions. First is to, we have 3 weeks to submit the proposal by 15th of July. Is it enough to write a proposal, convince your department dean and find a collaborator? And if yes, then how to find a collaborator? My second question.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we do recognize that 3 weeks is not, you know, an extensive amount of time, but you know, we've been, usually our deadline for the proposals was actually, you know, near the end of the spring semester, and just with everything this last semester, we've been pushed, and we didn't want to push it too much further because we want to make sure that for those groups who are funded, that funding can roll out by September, so that, you know, if people are trying to do teaching buyout for the fall semester, for example, that can take place. So, you know, we do apologize for the kind of shorter amount of application time. In terms of finding a collaborator, I would suggest that you email Chris McGarry if you're looking for someone. And, you know, it sounds like you have a fairly specific idea, and I would encourage you to be in touch. Even as you're looking for a collaborator, I would encourage you to be in touch with your department and dean, department head, and, you know, and start to get a feel of whether they would support such an application, and kind of get it on their radar so that you can request, once you hopefully find a collaborator, you can request that letter and give them at least, you know, a week or so to help you with that.
Thank you.
I've published my email address in the chat portion, but I can also be reached at collaboratory@columbia.edu.
Okay, thank you.
Great. We have another question from the chat from Erica Avrami, and Kevin Hong also said that's a great question, Erica. So the question is, you have discussed different kinds of new courses, boot camps, workshops, etc., but could the grant be used to evolve an existing course?
When I read that question, I was struck by the point that you and I talked earlier about, Isabel, which is this notion of justifying need. So if I can answer a slightly different question with this point about need, that's going to make your proposals that much stronger. If your course is just incrementally different from the other person's course, and all of the students can also take that other person's course, your need will be defined as relatively small. Whereas if in the example that Tien gave earlier, we've got this incredible set of concepts up at the medical school, but undergraduates are missing out completely, and it's appropriate for them to do that, then the need for that course is quite high. If you're talking about an existing course and not a new type of format for the course, online or in person or otherwise, but if it is an existing course, you'll have to double down on your justification for the need. Will this modification to the existing course make it that much more relevant and meaningful for the students who are able to take it? Will the existing course become obsolete over the next few years if it does not get this kind of infusion of new thinking and data science? So those are the kinds of things in the proposal that the committees will be looking for.
Another idea that is working under the infrastructure of an existing course can sometimes be viewed as a positive aspect of a proposal, because that shows that the proposal will not create new teaching load, will not need more curriculum committee review. Like if it makes the sustainability easier. What we're looking for is whether it aligns well with the collaborative program by adding new data science skills and new data science literacy to the curriculum. So adding that could be done within the existing course, but that renovation has to look substantial and innovative. So one idea I have heard before is there are, for example, a lot of disciplines have courses called quantitative method for researchers, for example, right? So traditionally you teach a bunch of linear regression and then you calculate p-values and that's it. But nowadays, the definition of quantitative methods expanded drastically. So you can justify saying our students continuously have a continuous need for this curriculum to be updated, and we're gonna overhaul the whole design, right? And then we are going to introduce interdisciplinary collaboration as a part of this, and then here are the way we're doing it. I think that would be a very justified proposal to modify an existing course.
Yeah, great. And I'd also just add the point that I mentioned in the presentation that we're also looking at, for example, proposals that are taking existing coursework online and doing it in a really well thought through and robust ways. So that's another way that you might think about taking existing coursework and, updating it or adapting it. But again, it has to be justified. It has to be, compelling within the program of the Collaboratory in terms of these data science, embedding data science skills or bringing other domains to data science.
I think
Sorry,
Jen
Chris.
Mansfield had her hand raised.
Great.
You're on mute, Jen.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Jen Mansfield in the bio department at Barnard College. I think I've heard a lot of answers to this, but I was wondering, in addition to trying to justify the position of a course within a curriculum and the need for it, maybe across curricula, to what extent would you expect or simply value development of instructional materials or evaluation materials that could be transferred? So like Isabel, you mentioned this template for evaluation. Is that an expectation that we're developing materials that could be used more broadly than the course itself?
I would say it's not necessarily an expectation, but it might enrich your proposal a bit. I mean, we've seen a number of our projects kind of turn their attention to this to some degree, from the template, the kind of evaluation template as one example. Another that Tian mentioned earlier, the data past, present, and future, which put all their materials online so people can, you can kind of almost take the course by looking at their material. And they also made their syllabus open access, and they believe that it's being taught by being taught at other institutions. So, those are all things that we would look positively at. Does that mean every course has to think beyond the walls of Columbia? Not necessarily, or Barnard, for example, not necessarily. So, if that feels like a natural fit with your proposal, great. But if it feels like you have to kind of add a bell and whistle that's not really fundamental to your project, then I would say, focus on the things that are really core to your work.
Thank you. Can I
Sure.
ask a really quick follow-up, unrelated?
Yeah.
So if there are 2 schools participating, I assume you'd like to see letters from the deans and the chairs of both, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, one thing we'll be looking for is in the letter from the deans or the department chairs, we would like them to be more explicit about what they're agreeing to. And this has happened in the past, like when people teach across school borders, and how teaching load will be counted. We don't necessarily care so much about tuition recovery. The collaborator does not care, but the deans, we don't want this to, like, 2 years down the road and the course cannot continue because people cannot agree on that. but we're not actually, expecting you to sort this out in 3 weeks. Rather, in a way, is acknowledging such conversation need to take place, and acknowledging their willingness to collaborate with other school, and then their commitment to make this happen. I think that is a kind of thing we'll be looking for in those super letters.
Can I give a shout out to the notion of entrepreneurship and how it's related to this course? It may be relevant to the answer to some of your questions. In a very real sense, we're trying to set up an experiment here. We're offering 2 founders, different teachers, a little bit of grant money in the entrepreneurship world is called seed funding, and you're going to create a little beta product. This is an experiment, right? Your product may not work in the market or not. So you go to your deans and your committees on instructions and you say, how often do we get an opportunity to plan out a course when we're getting funding? So we're taking all the risk out of developing and launching for the first time or second time teaching a new course. The commitment we're asking for is, if upon completion of a successful experiment, we want you, Mrs. Dean or Mrs. Department Chair, to find a way to keep this funded in perpetuity. So there is a genuine sense of experimentation here. It's okay if you don't know what the results of the experiments are going to be, but you're all very used to articulating the experimental parameters and hypotheses and methodologies you are planning on pursuing. And so that's what we're going to look for. We're not going to look for the certainty in the outcome necessarily. We're going to look for the percentage likelihood of the outcome.
And also, I think what we're looking for is a commitment from your leaderships that if this product turns out to be good for the market, they will be supportive of helping you go through the bureaucracies and then to make the product sustainable, rather than saying, oh, we never said we're going to do this beyond 3 years, no matter how good it is. So that's the kind of thing that many of the prior project committed, like their chairs and deans in the letters said that they will help the team identify overcome the hurdles, just to acknowledge that. Like we don't know what kind of problem issues will come up down the road. We always learn something new, but sort of commitment to be a partner to help you solve problems it's a reasonable thing to do now, and also will strengthen your proposal.
And we should say that almost without exception, there has been enthusiasm from all deans and all department chairs that we've talked to about that. Everybody knows they've got to incorporate data science into their curriculum. We're giving the deans a new tool to accelerate that, right? We're taking the risk away by funding it for the first 3 years, and we're allowing for this experiment to happen. We're allowing you to take the new course out for a shakedown cruise, make some changes, and then launch it again. So approaching the deans won't be an unpleasant situation in most cases.
Great. We have other, let's see, I've been taking notes, so I may have missed some of our questions in the chat. Let's see.
I think we are running out of steam.
Okay, great. I see. Thank you. Some people willing to collaborate potentially. Great. Any last questions?
In the chat, have you, as part of the grants, have folks included things like hackathons as a way to jumpstart the collaboration process, or kind of build data sets, any number of uses for something like that?
Thank you.
If I could clarify the question, is this alternative ways to get a new class started, or is this adding things like hackathons onto a larger program?
Adding things like hackathons onto a larger program.
The answer is yes. Speaker series, open to the public, lectures, boot camps. I should mention that Data Past, Present, and Future was the first project to turn their semester-long course into a week-long boot camp so they could beta test it before they launched the course. So they uncovered all kinds of problems, many of them interesting, some of them just more practical, that they could overcome in a 5-week workshop, and that increased the chances of their success for the longer-term course. And it also allowed them to uncover errors and mistakes and things they didn't think of early before they've spent all of their money on the course.
Great. Any last questions lingering?
Thank you all for attending.
Yeah, thank you. We look forward to reading your proposal.
Thank you so much.
And always feel free to email us. We're all on the receiving end of the Collaboratory at Columbia.edu. So when you email, we get your email.